All right, kiddos. Good chat in class today. Let's continue doing that. In any event, let's get back to math. And this is, we're talking about polynomials and how to manipulate them and how to multiply, add, subtract. And today, we're going to talk about how to divide, at least how to divide polynomials by a factor, a linear factor, like x plus or minus a, right? So we call that a linear binomial with a coefficient of x being 1, right? So this is about the easiest case we can get. And so I'll show you how to do it, okay? It's called synthetic division. So first we take this quotient, right? There are a couple ways. So this is the numerator, and this x minus 2 can be thought of as a denominator. So I have a cubic, 1, 2, 3, 4, quadrinomial, I think that's the word, quadromial, divided by a linear 1, 2 binomial, okay? So what I'm going to do is if I'm dividing by x minus 2, I'm going to take the opposite of the negative 2, which will be 2. I'm going to put it right here in a box, okay? So take the first step, take the opposite of this number. If it's negative 2, make it positive 2, put it in the box, okay? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up all the coefficients of the numerator. Coefficients in descending order from the highest degree term to the lowest constant. So that my coefficient will be 1, 5, negative 7, 2. So I'm going to line all those numbers up. Right? 1, leave some space, 5, negative 7, and 2. Okay. Sometimes if you don't have an x term, you'll have to keep that place with a 0 for that particular degree term. Okay, but this is not the case. We have a cubic, a quadratic, a linear, and a constant. So I'm taking just the coefficients, 1, 5, negative 7, 2, right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line, and so I'm going to put a line down here. Okay? And just like we would do division normally, I'm going to bring this down. So I bring the 1 down, bring the first number down. Goes right here. Okay? And now I'm going to multiply the 2, which is out here, but I should have put a box out there, right? So there's a kind of a 2 in the box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the number down here by 2. So 2 times 1 is 2, and I'll put it right here. Okay? Now I'm going to add, right? So I multiply 2 times 1, I put that here, and now I add. So 5, whoops, this 5 plus 2, 7, I'm going to put the 7 right here. Okay? Now I'm going to multiply the 2 in the box by the 7, put it here, 14. I'm going to add negative 7 plus 14, 7. And then very last, I'm going to multiply 2 times this 7, 14. Put it here. And I'm going to add to get 16. Okay. This very last number goes in the box. I'll just, for now, put a little line separating it. Okay. Okay. So what I've done is this so far. I'm using a process called synthetic division. And you start by taking the opposite of this. So if it's x minus 2, I take a positive 2. Later we'll learn this is the root that comes from, potential root that comes from that potential factor. And then I put the coefficients, 1, 5, negative 7, 2 of my numerator, all in a row, right? And then you bring down the first coefficient, multiply, add, multiply, add, multiply, add, okay? So what this means is that I've just found that when I divide this, I get, these are now the coefficients of my depressed polynomial. And remember, we talked about briefly the other day, if you divide a cubic by a linear first degree polynomial, you end up with a quadratic depressed polynomial. So this ends up being 1x squared, which I'll just write as x squared, right? Plus the 7 represents the coefficient of the next term, which would be 7x, plus, and that 7 is the constant, right? So the 1, 7, 7 are coefficients of my depressed quadratic polynomial. 1x squared plus 7x plus 7. So you might ask, what on earth then is the 16? Well, the 16 is a remainder, right? So the final number here in the box is the remainder. If there is a remainder, it means it doesn't divide evenly, right? So 9 does not divide 12 evenly, so you'll have a remainder. Same thing here. So 16 is a remainder, and it's 16 over what I'm dividing by, the quantity x minus 2. Okay? So that's a process called synthetic division, and I just use that to divide this cubic by this linear term. Okay? Remainder 16 doesn't go in evenly. Okay, let's take a look at another problem, and then we'll pick up from here tomorrow. Okay? So here's another example, another cubic divided by an x plus or minus a, in this case x plus 2. Right? So I'm going to use the same process. If I'm dividing by x plus 2, I take the opposite of that 2, which is negative 2, and I put it in the box. Right? Later we'll learn that's the potential root that comes from the potential factor of x plus 2. Okay? Now I'm going to take all the coefficients of my numerator and line them up and write them. Okay, so I have 3x cubed, put the 3, negative 4x squared, negative 28x, minus 16. Okay? I'm going to draw my little line, and I'm going to start multiplying and adding. Okay? I begin by bringing the 3 down. The leading coefficient, 3, comes down. I'm going to put that here. And I multiply, add. Right? So I multiply negative 2 times 3 to get negative 6, and then I add vertically. Right? Multiply negative 2 times negative 10 to get 20. Add. Multiply negative 2 times negative 8. Add. Oh, that's kind of cool, right? And I put that last number in the box. Okay? Remember, that last number is the remainder. If I have a remainder of 0, guess what that means? Yep, you guessed it. That means that x plus 2 divides, or is a divisor or factor of this cubic. Right? So what I just found is that this guy right here, when I do divide it, it's equal to, and again, these are the coefficients of my polynomial. So it's going to be 3x squared. Right, the 3 is the coefficient of my leading depressed quadratic coefficient, plus, actually not plus, minus 10, right? That's a coefficient of my next term, which is 10x, minus 8, which is my coefficient, or really my constant. Okay? Right. So note the similarities. Note the difference in that if I have a 0 remainder, it means it divides evenly. X plus 2 goes into this cubic evenly. This is how many times? Whereas this does not divide evenly. I got a remainder of 16 over what I was dividing by. Okay? I'm going to pick up with this tomorrow. I just want to introduce it to you now, and tomorrow we'll kind of do a lot of these problems, get some practice. Have a great night.